Hi, welcome to this Multicloud and Power Systems webinar and demonstrations. In that particular session, we're going to focus on the IBM Cloud offering for Power Systems. So for that, I can use Terraform and Ansible. So let's use this, and then we will use the Cloud Automation, so an additional layer based on the Cloud Pack and the Multi-Cloud Manager to manage all this from a single pane of glass. But for the first demonstration, let's use a Terraform um, template to provision in the IBM Cloud service. So for that, I've just created a Terraform template that you can find on GitHub, describing, the Terraform files provider I'm using, so IBM Cloud Provider for that in that case, and describing the resource I want to create in the IBM Cloud. So in my case, it's going to just provision a simple virtual machine, right? And of course, it's after it's Terraform, so you can customize all this. So what I have to do on my system, then I can just git clone this Terraform template. I'm in the good directory, so I've just cloned it. I've already preset some variables. So if we have a look to the main Terraform file, listing the resources I want to create, a list of keys, networks, so internal network, LPAR to LPAR communication, LPAR to IBM Cloud, plus maybe an external network to access directly through the internet. So it's a matter of choice. The image name, and a list of parameters, for instance, the image ID. So in my case, I'm going to provision IBM i7.3, but it's a customized image that I pre-created from a previous backup in Cloud Object Storage, imported in the IBM Cloud environment, and I'm going to load this. One of the particularity of this image is it's pre-starting the SSH daemon, for instance, and I also accepted the license, etc. So it's let's say a pre-customized IBM image. I can do exactly the same on AIX, of course. A list of volume IDs. In my case, I'm just gonna use one disk, the boot disk, I would say. If I want additional disk in my system ASP, I can specify this in there. And I'm going to use, yes, several networks, so 2 networks in my case, and the number of processors, virtual processors on an S922. This is what I'm asking for, and this is I pre-comment. I'm commented this post install script, but it's because I'm going to use IBMI, but it's, you can do whatever you want with Terraform. So anyway, if I have a look to the variables, this is a file describing all the variables. So in my case, the instance ID. So remember, I'm on the IBM Cloud. This is my I can have a look to the ID. So if I want to have an overview of the instance ID, I have several ways to do that. I can use the CLI, of course, but I can also use this the graphical user interface. So in my case, for instance, Frankfurt 1. If I click there, I can have the details, and this is the ID basically. So I'm going to use this ID in my Terraform template to say I want to provision a VM in Frankfurt 1 or in Dallas or Washington or Frankfurt 2, etc. So if I go back to my Terraform stuff, this is exactly the ID I've just described. Amount of memory, number of processors, shared mode. I don't need dedicated. It's not a production environment, but I could, of course. I could specify dedicated on the ACE E980. In my case, it's just for quality assurance, I would say. So use case, I'm gonna just deploy, test the new version of my application, validate it, and destroy the environment. This is my case. 2 networks. Um, and yeah, some parameters. So the name of the image, 7.3, customize one from map, and etc. So number of VMs and many other options that are documented in the IBM Cloud and the Power Virtual Infrastructure documentation. If I apply this, so first, this is the Terraform I installed on my laptop. I can install it on whatever platform. So if I Terraform version, I'm using this particular version of Terraform, and with this particular version of the IBM provider, which has to be installed before running these commands. And then I can just plan what I've just described and see what it says. So yeah, I just have to set a few additional variables that are not set in the variables.tf file, but it's so in my case the name of the key SSH key is test. Let's have a look. So it's contacting the IBM cloud on my environment using my API key. And it's checking the resource availability, etc. So it's performing. And here we go. So this is what it's going to create in this particular instance ID. So in my case, in Frankfurt 1, with this image ID, which is IBM i7-3, the name of the VM, I specify 12 gig of memory, 2 networks, 1 processor in shared mode on an ACE932. Okay, so I think I'm ready. And this is the SSH key, but it's really a detail. So let's apply. Terraform, apply. So, yep. So this is, I want to validate a new version of my application. I don't want to have a permanent environment for this. This is an example. So it's just asking me if I yeah. So I have just to confirm that I want this to be applied. So in that case, it's running. If I want to have a look to what's going on, so I can have a look in real time. So if now I know I'm pointing to Frankfurt 1, so let's go to my Frankfurt 1 environment. And if I refresh the view, so let's wait a bit. Okay. Here we go. So the VM is being created. And this is my IBM i7-3 made by MOP image, 1 core. So it's still in the build phase. So of course I have to wait a few minutes, I would say, for this IBM or AIX partition to boot to IPL. If I want to have a look, I'm in the same view using command line. Of course, I can. Remember instances, and I'm already connected to my IBM account. So, okay, demo VM. And if I want to have the details, it's instance and the name of the resource, demo VM in that case. Okay, so it's still in pending phase. So I have to wait for, a few minutes. And if I go back to so it's still creating. Let's wait a bit. It's still running. If I want, if I want to have a look to the status, I can regularly check the status. Okay, so now it's being provisioned on 2 networks, 1 internal, 1 external, 1 volume. Tier 3 means HDD. So one, in my case, IBM i, sysbase, 1 disk. As an example, the image is the 7.3. This is the idea. And yeah, if I do image, for instance, if I want to check that, images, and I've got several images, AIX, IBM i in my environment. And of course, the one I'm using right now is the one I specified in the Terraform template. So 9.1 is the 7.3 MOP. Okay. I could have chosen this kind of these images as well. This is the internal address in my internal VLAN, LPAR to LPAR, LPAR to IBM Cloud Communication, or used. I can use it for accessing my IBM I or AIX environments if I create an additional VPN service in the IBM Cloud account. This is the internal external address. Okay. So if I go back to the graphical user interface, I should maybe have more details about the VM. So it's still, uh, yep, still in warning, but it's normal. It's IPLing. So in my case, it's 80 gig of disks and public network on, but it could have been off. All right. And as I said, I can export it at once customized. For instance, if I provision the latest application version and I want to capture this image, I can do this from that. I can restart it, of course, etc. So now my VM seems active and everything is green. That's good. If I go there, I can check the same using the CLI. All right. So it's okay. I can access now the VM using this external address. Um, so several ways I can start manually SSH using the console. So of course I can use the graphical user interface to say, please give me the console. Okay. So this is the 5250 console. So this is the after 6 minutes and 43 seconds, the return of the command, the Terraform command, saying that my IBM I is now up and running, and I can reach it using this external IP optional, or using a VPN and this internal using the internal VLAN there. I can exactly so. This is this I've just used it in the European region, but I can do exactly the same, of course, in the US region. So in that particular template, I can do Terraform plan. All right, so it says that everything is ready to be applied. So let's do the same demo VM, but this time in the US region. So exactly the same, apply. So it's very easy to manage several environments. So just have to set different values for the variables. So yes, there you go. So it's so let's have a view of what's going on in my. So I've got an instance that is up and running in the European. So if I do instances, yeah, I've got the detail of this demo VM, right? I can access. Let's delete it and have a view on the same, but in the US region, right? So now if I want to switch from, I just have to set the service target. So I can list first the services which are, all right. So let's switch to the US now region. So let's choose the, yeah, I'm targeting that, and US South, right? So I'm just changing the scope of the CLI, that's all. So now I'm in the US South. So let's have a look to the instances running in this region. Here we go. This is my new IBM IVM, but this time running in the US region. So if I go there and if I go back to the resource list, and if I go now to this particular service instance running in Dallas, US South, I've just created a VM through using Terraform, and this is being created uh, almost up and running, still in the building phase, but it's really the same principle, but I can manage several cloud instances like that using Terraform. And we will see in the next demo how to use Cloud Automation Manager with Terraform to manage several cloud environments, private and several regions. But it's up and running, and if I want to have a detail of what's going on, I can just have a, okay, so it's being created uh, the IBM I with 80 gig of disk, shared processor, etc. So it's just in the pending state, so I have to wait for a few minutes. If I go back to the command line, the Terraform, it's just being applied. We have to wait for 6 minutes, something like that, to create an IBM I partition. And for AIX, it's even, faster. It's something like, I don't know, a couple of minutes. This time I'm using 7.4. Just another customized environment image I created. So the partition is being provisioned, and okay, one core, 12 gig, same resources, but in the US region that time. All right, so this is after 6 minutes, 10 seconds this time in the US, and the partition is now up and running with this external IP because I asked for two network interfaces, one in the internal LAN and the second one reachable from the internet as an option. So now so this could, if I refresh the view in the graphical user interface, I will have the same information. Of course, active, green. Let's now access to the VM console, open console. So this is the demonstration VM, and this is my IBM I up and running. This is my new virtual machine, IBM I partition. I can So if I try now to if I start SSH, for instance, let's see if I can connect to the so this is my up and running IBM I partition demo VM. I've just started SSH, and let's have a look. So if I can access, okay, with a particular user profile. Okay, so I'm in, and Okay, this is my 7.4 and my partition is up and running. So when I'm done, I can connect remotely to this particular partition. I can destroy it, so I can use the graphical user interface to stop, start, and delete, or I can use, of course, Terraform to destroy the resource, and I can also use the CLI. So it's really up to me. I can do a Terraform destroy, for instance, and it's the same. So it's gonna delete everything. Um, so this is an example of how to use Terraform and the IBM Cloud CLI to automate the IBM I provisioning and for any use cases to US and Europe. In the next demonstration, we're gonna see, so yes, destroy. And behind the scenes, if I go there. Okay, so now it's cleared. Let's now proceed with the multi-cloud demonstration. So the goal, the scenario is for DevOps teams to be able to provision um, an application running on Power Systems, either in their own data center or in the IBM Cloud, for instance. So for that, we're going to create an orchestration using Cloud Automation Manager, part of the Cloud Pack for multi-cloud management. And we are going to address, so on one side, the private cloud with Power VC OpenStack, and on the other side, with Terraform, the IBM Cloud Power Virtual Server service. So let's connect first to the IBM Cloud Automation Manager, powered by Terraform. So as mentioned earlier, first you have to create connections. So in my case, I've already created so 2 connections, and I could have created additional ones to the vCenter or so any kinds of cloud provider. So on one side, it's the IBM Cloud, public cloud, and in that particular scenario, and the Power VC based on infrastructure. So we have 2 connectors. They are valid and connected. So the first step, as said, we have to first import templates. So it's Cloud Automation Manager templates are basically Terraform templates, so you can use whatever templates you can find in Git. So in my case, if I go to the template list, I've already pre-created, imported Terraform template for provisioning virtual machines on Power VC, and the second one for addressing the public cloud. Okay, so and the goal at the end is to create a service which will address both the on-premise and off-premise infrastructure. So this is the Git I mentioned earlier, the source of my template. I can have a look to the source, etc. And if I want to give it a try, I just have to deploy this template and set the variables according to my environment, etc. So namespace is the namespace allows me to isolate CAM users. So this, let's say the instance name it's cloud connection, and yeah, Terraform version, and then all the variables that are used in my Terraform template. Okay, so I can specify the image name, the kind of machine, so S922 by default in that case, any connection information, virtual CPU, memory, etc., and networking options. And if I push deploy, it's exactly as I did with the Terraform command line, right? So I can do that. And additionally, what I can do now is I'm gonna create a service based on these two templates, Power VC and Power Virtual Server in the IBM Cloud. For that, I click on the service list. And a service is just a way to expose to the external users, non-IT, for instance, or DevOps teams, a higher level solution. Now want to automate all this, we have to create what we call a service. And the service is basically a way to orchestrate all these templates and pass a variable from one template to another. If you have a multi-tier, for instance, application, you can deploy several templates in a single atomic way, which is called a service. And a service can be exposed through a REST API or published in the Multicloud Manager graphical user interface. So the end user can directly consume service. That could be high level, I don't know, SAP HANA as a service, Oracle as a service, or I don't know, Node.js application plus an IBM I database. So it could be really high level. In my case, I already pre-created a service here. Let's have a look to it. So it's I created some plans, and so for now I've got 3 plans: advanced standard addressing private and Power VC, and I've got the third choice, which is Power Virtual Server in the IBM Cloud. So if I have a look to the, so it's still so let's edit this this service, and for that this is the Cloud Automation Manager service graphical user interface. I can edit it, I can save it to Git, for instance, and I can work in collaboration with other people. And this is how it looks like. So this is my Power Virtual Server service, and I've got 3 flavors. I created private, 2 entries. So if the user selects private or private advanced, there will there will provision a VM on Power VC, but I have just added an additional option, public. So this particular DevOps user can also choose the public flavor, and in that case, it's a different Terraform template here. So this is Power VC based, and this is IBM Cloud based. And basically, if I drill down and see how it looks like, I can see the parameters. So basically, this is going to be, we will use this version of Terraform, but and this IBM Cloud connection, which is more important. And the parameters I mean, it's quite simple. It's the one I used for the Terraform template test and demonstration. So I've just drag and, what I did is Power. This is my Power Virtual Server templates I imported in Cloud Automation Manager from Git. And I just drag and drop this to that place. And here is the list of parameters I can set. So I can choose to make them, expose this variable to as a parameter variable to the end user, or I can hardcode, I would say, this parameter. So for the sake of simplicity, I put some, most of these parameters are fixed. So the region, for instance, but it could have been an input parameter in a drop down list, for instance. The image name is also static for that particular service, but of course, in production, I would put it in as a variable that the end user could choose. But let's say that it's a standardized service. S922. And remember, we have to choose a choice between, for this particular service, between S922 and an E980. VM name, which is dynamically taken from the instance, the service name. The user will, put in input. And many other parameters, so number of processors could have been fixed or put in parameters. So one CPU, 16 gig, a single disk in my system ISP if it's an IBM I image. And in that case, it's an IBM N7.3 from MOP. But yeah, of course, as I said, it could have been a variable with a drop-down list between IBM I, AIX, etc. So it's not finished. And networks, so basically I specified either my internal VLAN and an external network exposed to the internet. So it's really a choice. I want this VM for my QA service to be accessible through the internet for a direct testing from the internet. But of course, I could have removed this and just use a VPN and the internal network, right? So once done, and the output parameter is the IP address. And this IP address will be used in my email. So I want to receive an email from, so I will receive it in the body of this particular email sent by Cam. So once I'm happy with that, I can just click deploy. Right, so let's choose that one, for instance, the one we've just, so let's give it a try. Namespace, so you can hide this, but if you promote this service on using REST API, but by default, a user, so I'm admin, so I can see all the namespaces, but if I'm a standard user, I won't have the choice. Let's do test power. Number of VM, deploy. So my VM seems up and running. IBM i7.3, external IP, as I specified the option here. Also connected to the private network. The same information. Okay, and if I come back to the, okay, so now the service is active. And so my VM is now up and running in the IBM cloud. I just received, so the service is active. I've just received a mail saying that my IBM I partition is ready and set the 3.
This is really a basic email I'm sending from the CAM service, and this is the IP address. So of course I haven't worked on the formatting, so sorry, but I've got the information, and I can now destroy my once validated. I can now, of course, destroy the resources from there. Just have to simply terminate the service, which is gonna destroy all the resources associated with this instance, right? Okay, so everything is cleaned up on my IBM Cloud account. Back to normal, I would say. So it's still okay. Terminated means everything has been destroyed. Just to summarize what we've just done: automation with Terraform and Cloud Automation Manager, allowing my DevOps teams to expose a service, a Power Virtual Machine as a service, either in the private with Power VC and public cloud using Terraform, and you can automate additionally application deployment at the OS and file level with maybe Ansible or Terraform for dynamically provisioning applications on top of my IBM I or AIX virtual machine. But it will be part of another demonstration. Thank you very much for attending this demo, and see you soon.